Race 2 for the Mazda MX-5 SuperCup is about to get underway. Cars are all lined up at the assembly area. The front row is headed up by Luke Herbert and then James Blake Baldwin. The grid positions are based on the second fastest qualifying times, which means John Greensmith had a bit of a dismal qualifying session, puts you in 8th for the second race. It's going to be interesting from your point of view. Yeah,
it's going to be hard work, to be honest with you, from grid 8, which I didn't really want, but qualifying didn't work out properly for us. So it's going to be an interesting race, definitely.
Yeah, I think the trick here with Brands Hatch is trying to get as far ahead as you can from the start, because Luke's just going to be away.
Oh yeah, if everyone starts messing about, and that's it, Luke will be gone, absolutely disappearing sunshine. So I just need to be on them straight away, to make sure on that first lap, make sure everyone trips over each other, and I'll be pouncing there, ready.
And with the way the drop scores works, it's vital to score as many points as you can this weekend.
Yeah, it is. You've got really, if you want to be in contention for the championship, you've got to be in top 5 every single race. So like yesterday, we didn't do very well, to be honest with you, a little bit of contact and stuff, and we just had to drop that score, drop that one, and then carry on for the whole rest of the season.
Well, the whistle's just blown, telling you to get in the car, so
yeah.
Good luck.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Cheers, John. So with that, I'll hand you up to our commentary team and Andy McEwan.
Yeah, thanks Anthony, and drop scores will be something we'll be talking about more and more as the season goes on. For now, let's talk about the grid. As Anthony said, second fastest qualifying times deciding this one, so it's Herbert from Blake Baldwin again on row 1, ahead of Harding and Hills on row 2, then it's Steve Robertson, Simon Baldwin on the 3rd row, with Colin Bysouth and Johnny Greensmith down on row number 4. Row 5 is Gary Townsend and Alec Nibsley, with Sam Tatler and Jack Sycamore on row 6, Will Stevenson and Nick Boone are on row 7, James Kell and Christian White hoping to reach the end of this one on row 8. George Grant and Bradley Kent on the 9th row ahead of Carl Garnett and Alex King, then Alex Miller and John Stack, with Tom Parker and Javier Brook on the 12th row, Jeff Gurrier and Duncan Harris are next, with Nick Rutter and Mark Swarbrick once more rounding out the 28-car field. So Herbert from the pole, look at the way that James Blake Baldwin is aggressively angling his car down towards the pit wall. That's because the pit straight here at Brands Hatch slopes quite severely from right to left, and so you can gain a benefit from getting gravity on your side, so to speak. Does it work for Blake Baldwin? It looks like they're going to be side by side as the lights go out and the rush towards Paddock Hill Bend begins. Here comes Aidan Hills up the inside of Blake Baldwin for second place, but Herbert, I think, is just about going to hang on. Can Hills get second place away from Blake Baldwin as they dash up the hill towards Druids for the first time? Let's wait and see. All safely through Paddock into the braking zone, and yes, Hills has got the inside line, and the danger at this early stage of the race is that Blake Baldwin could find himself getting hung out to dry and lose places hand over fist on board with Bysouth, looking back at Greensmith there, who's back up the inside of him down towards Graham Hill Bend, having been eased out over the grass coming out of Druids. Bysouth now runs wide, Gary Townsend on the inside, oh, contact, and off goes Bysouth, and just avoids the barriers by the skin of his teeth, but he'll fall right to the back of the grid, and that's another missed opportunity really for Colin, who has been on the fringes of the top 5 all year long and just not quite been able to hold on to a really good finish. So that's a shame for him. Carl Garnett there is out on the grass coming out of Clearways, but it's Herbert that leads the way. Hills second, Blake Baldwin 3rd, Harding 4th. Now Jack Harding, remember, beat Blake Baldwin in the first race, and in doing so took a share of the championship lead. He and James are now tied on points for the championship lead, with Luke Herbert only 2 points further back. So the top 3 covered by 2 points in the championship race. It is that close. Back down towards Graham Hill Bend they go, and Aidan Hills ahead of both of those top 2 in the championship, and now trying to get himself in front of everybody by challenging for the race lead. This is a much better performance than we saw yesterday for Aidan, when he just seemed to be lacking a little bit in outright speed, couldn't quite go with the race leaders, and now here he is right on the tail of the race leader himself. Luke Herbert looking for his first ever win in the championship as Aidan Hills, but it's his teammate who is standing in his way right now, leading for already starting to build a bit of a gap now over the rest of the field. Herbert from Hills, from Blake Baldwin from Harding, and Aidan Hills is more than close enough to have a go down towards Paddock Hill Bend. He's almost pushing his teammate up towards Paddock into the braking zone. He ducks out of the slipstream last second to try and carry some speed through the turn, but they cannot afford to let Luke Herbert escape. If Luke builds up a gap, he is so hard to catch back up again, and certainly very hard to overhaul once you do get to him, so it's crucial that the cars behind don't trip over each other too much, to the extent that Luke's able to break the toe, as he did in race 1. That is a typical Luke Herbert trick, that. Start defending initially, force the cars behind to start tripping over each other, and then build that gap. He's capable of pulling the pin right when he needs to, and building that gap over the rest of the field, leaving everyone else seemingly unable to do anything about him. So back through clearways again. No change in the order this time around. Looks like Simon Baldwin is 5th, ahead of, I think that's Steve Roberts in 6th, who's having another really good weekend this weekend, is Steve. Comes into this one having scored just the 1 podium, right back at Silverstone at the start of the year. Aidan Hills with a big look up the inside of Luke Herbert there into Paddock Hill Bend. Blake Baldwin, though, coming under increasing pressure from Jack Harding. Look, who tries to get up the inside of him towards Druid's corner. Can't quite get there, though. Blake Baldwin slams the door in his face. Hard on the brakes now into the right-hander, and Aidan Hills in fact leaves the door open for Blake Baldwin to come up the inside into 2nd place. So Blake Baldwin gets 2nd, and Hills could now lose 3rd place. In fact, he comes back at Blake Baldwin up the inside into Graham Hill Bend. Floppy markers go flying. Hills is sideways. Blake Baldwin's on the grass. Luke Herbert's going to try and get up the inside of the pair of them, and it will be Aidan Hills who really loses out there. Well, he'll drop from 2nd down to 4th position. What a shame that was for Aidan, who'd had such a positive start to the race, and all of a sudden he's slipping backwards down the order. Simon Baldwin the next now to start applying the pressure. Out of clearways, back along the start-finish line they go, and look at what's happened. Luke Herbert builds up the gap as ever he does, and the cars behind so busy squabbling with each other that they lose too much ground to the leader. Here's a replay. Look, Hills up the inside, wipes out the floppy marker, loses a wing mirror as well. They both run out wide, and so Harding gets alongside him into Surtees and just makes the move stick. So Luke Herbert then still your leader. Blake Baldwin 2nd, Harding 3rd, Hills 4th, Simon Baldwin 5th, and Steve Roberts in 6th position. And that's the 5-car train you can see there from 2nd down to 6th. Steve Roberts, as I said, had that podium back in one of the races at Silverstone. In fact, it was the very first race at Silverstone where he finished 2nd behind Will Stacey, who unfortunately went and damaged his car rather badly when he had brake failure in race 2. And that means that Will has not been able to take further part in the championship, but he did win the first race of the year, with Roberts 2nd and Greensmith 3rd. So who'd have predicted that podium for the first race of the year? Since then, things have started to become far from predictable, but maybe, you know, the usual suspects have started to make their way towards the front. One of them being Johnny Greensmith, definitely, but Steve Roberts, in his 2nd season racing in the championship, having much, much better form at the start of 2018. And the multiple former BMW Compact Cup champion, another one of the championships run by the BRSCC. He made the switch over at the start of last season, has been thoroughly enjoying himself, all the more now that he's fighting nearer the front. Not fighting near the front is George Grant, unfortunately, because he's off the track up at Clearways and has just found his way into the gravel trap. So for George, his race appears to be over. The marshals are vacating the scene, and that tells me that they're probably expecting the safety car to be thrown. Meanwhile, battling here between Mark Swarbrick and Alex Miller, with Colin Bysouth recovering, of course, after his first lap spin, pulls himself almost alongside it towards Surtees, but that's the outside line into this dauntingly quick left-hander. Then there's a yellow flag zone, so no chance of gaining positions for the time being. Live snatch vehicle, you can see them poking its head out of the barriers, waiting to go and retrieve George Grant's car. Hopefully that means we'll be able to move that without the cause for a safety car once more. We had 2 in yesterday's first race. Today, let's hope that we can go safety car free. So Luke Herbert leading the way in the SRC Recycling Limited liveried car. What is his margin now? Well, it's coming down, I'd say, over Blake Baldwin, Harding and Hills behind. They're just dropping Simon Baldwin and Steve Roberts slightly, and it looks like these three have got themselves slightly more organised now, and they are working together to close in on the race leader. Double waved yellow still out up at Clearways, as the marshals get busy moving George Grant's car out the way, but it does look as though they're going to let the car be moved under waved yellow flags rather than bringing out a safety car once again, which is good news because this race can continue, and it's starting to hot up because again that time around Blake Baldwin was fractionally quicker than Luke Herbert, who runs very wide at Paddock Hill Bend, and that will lose him all the momentum in the world up the hill towards Druids, and all of a sudden the gap has disappeared. Well, it's very rare that you see Luke Herbert make a mistake. It hasn't cost him the race lead yet, but will it prove to cost him the race lead in the long run, because it means that the 3 cars behind have latched right back onto his tail. Now, James Blake Baldwin is not backwards in coming forwards. If he senses an opportunity to go through, he will absolutely take it, and he's more than close enough to start trying to create those opportunities now. Into the right-hander at the top of the hill they go, and Herbert didn't quite feel the need to defend there because, of course, we've still got those yellow flags out, so that meant that he could still take the wide line out, and that means that he's not compromised out onto the pit straight. It might not matter there because the slipstream is such that Blake Baldwin is almost able to pull alongside anyway into the braking zone at Paddock Hill Bend. Look at Jack Harding, though, taking the wide line into the corner. Blake Baldwin and Herbert on a tight line in, and so the momentum will be with Harding on the exit of the corner. He can't go to the inside, so he goes to the outside instead, then ducks back in line there because going to the outside at Druids would potentially leave the door open for Aidan Hills in 4th place to dive up the inside. This squabbling is allowing Simon Baldwin and Steve Roberts to close back in as well, so the cat and mouse games that are going on inside this lead group are fascinating to watch, and they are changing with every lap that goes by as different drivers start to show momentum and get better runs on the cars in front. Sometimes when you're lapped this close onto the tail of the car in front of you, it's actually harder to make the move stick than if you arrive with a bit of momentum. Now Simon Baldwin's just gone past Aidan Hills there for 4th place in a yellow flag zone up at Clearways, so that will be interesting to see whether he's allowed to keep that position. Leaders fan out across the start-finish line low, and look at Blake Baldwin taking a nice wide line into Paddock. Looks like Aidan Hills has already got himself back ahead of Simon Baldwin, so it matters little in a way that there was that yellow flag infringement. Wait to see whether the stewards have anything to say about that post-race though. Leading 6 cars up towards Druids as one, back in the same order as they were a lap ago now. Johnny Greensmith is 7th, but not able to keep pace with this group, so we heard him saying to Anthony pre-race that qualifying didn't really go to plan. Well, nor have either of the races really. He was making decent progress in race 1 before that contact with Colin Bysouth put them both a few places further down the order. No contact in this one though to blame. He's just not had the pace to go with the leading contenders, it would seem. Back through this yellow flag zone at Clearways, still no overtaking, and Luke Herbert seems to have got the measure of James Blake Baldwin for the time being, but we're only halfway through this race, so James will still be feeling that he's got a chance to move through, if at all possible, in the slipstream towards Paddock, and Herbert is going to have to keep defending the inside line here, which means that he's always vulnerable to attack on the exit of the corner. But look at that, Jack Harding launches up the inside of Blake Baldwin. There's been a contact between the two of them. Blake Baldwin gets sideways. This is what Luke Herbert wants to see in his mirrors, of course, because now Harding is defending as well from Aidan Hills, Simon Baldwin behind him. But that was an opportunistic bit of driving there from Harding. Blake Baldwin was trying to take the wide line into Paddock to carry the speed out of the turn and maybe get the switchback manoeuvre executed on the race leader, but that left the door open on the way in, and Jack Harding was just about close enough to slip up the inside. He didn't quite make the move stick though, so they're still in the same order. Herbert from Blake Baldwin from Harding, your top 3. And luckily for Blake Baldwin, he hasn't lost all that much time to the leader as a result of that sideways moment of a Paddock, so he can continue to build margin on Harding and try and close the margin on Luke Herbert. Back into Paddock we go once more, and still Herbert having to defend the inside line. On the exit of the corner though, is anybody going to get the run? You saw that Blake Baldwin didn't dare go to the outside line then into Paddock Hill Bend. He stuck resolutely to the inside with Luke Herbert, and this is the difficulty when you're in a big chain of cars like this. You want to attack and you want to try different lines and try anything you can think of really to get the position in front of you away. But then in doing that, you potentially leave the door open or lose momentum and allow the next 3 or 4 cars a chance to get past you. So it is I know it's very easy to think when you're watching a group of drivers like this just running around single file nose to tail with each other, and you're sat there thinking, well, why don't they just try and overtake? Well, that's why, because if you go for it and it works, then yeah, great, you look like a hero. But if you go for it and it doesn't work, then you can end up falling down the order. And with the championship as finely poised as it is, even at this relatively early stage of the season, every point matters, and you can't afford to go throwing away positions by going for moves that don't quite work. Fan out again though on the braking into Paddock Hill Bend. Aidan Hills looks to be the driver with the widest line into the corner this time, but it's not quite enough to get underneath Jack Harding on the exit of the turn. Onto the brakes. Oh, Blake Baldwin up the inside of Herbert there, but a contact between the top 2. And Luke, I don't think, quite appreciated that. Hand out of the cockpit. He's gesticulating at James Blake Baldwin, who I said would go for it if there was a chink of an opening. Well, he made the opening a little bit wider there by getting up the inside, but he came from quite a long way back, and so Herbert had already closed the door. Thus, the two of them did make a bit of contact. But still, we've got these yellow flags out at this part of the circuit, so presumably they're still having some difficulty No, George Grant's car is actually off the road, so there must be another car off up at Clearways. And I'm not sure who that could be. We have lost Alex King, I can tell you, so I wonder whether maybe he's gone off at that part of the circuit. Anyway, leaders back into paddock, and Blake Baldwin with a bit more of a margin over Jack Harding this time, but still not willing to take that risk of moving offline into paddock. Moving off the defensive line, I should say. Aidan Hills, though, snapping at the heels of Jack Harding as they go up the hill. Aidan will be frustrated with the way in which this race has worked out, because he was running second and looking quicker than the leader earlier on, only to lose a few positions. Aidan Hills 5th in points. He is 32 off the championship lead before you take corrected, drop scores and correct the scores in that way. So Aidan, once he drops his worst 3 scores, which is what you do, you drop essentially a whole race weekend's worth of points, but you don't have to drop them from the same weekend. You can drop your worst 3 finishes from any point over the course of the year, even at the last round. So that always means, though, that the championship is never quite decided before that last race is finished, because that could become somebody's drop score, and if you drop a score, then that means you start counting another one, and so you actually, in a way, gain some points. It's all rather convoluted, but it does work. It keeps the championship tight right down to the end, and it means that if you, for whatever reason, have a really bad weekend, or you maybe don't have the budget to complete one weekend, you can still be in contention for the title come the end of the year. Aidan Hills very sideways there as he came out of Druids. Steve Roberts and Simon Baldwin side by side behind, and Roberts has moved through into 5th place over the last lap or so. So Steve Roberts, as he did to an extent in race 1, getting quicker as the race goes on, it would seem. Back through paddock we go, and leaders Constantine about together. Oh, Aidan Hills sideways again, and Steve Roberts is up the inside of him. Now, I think the yellow flags have gone in now at Clearways, finally, so they are allowed to race there. And Steve Roberts, well and truly racing, gets up the inside of Aidan Hills, down towards Paddock Hill Bend, but just doesn't have quite the momentum to make the move stick. And in fact, Simon Baldwin gets alongside him as well to the outside line, late on the brakes for Simon. Going to go right round the outside of Steve Roberts. This is brave stuff for 5th position. They're still side by side off the corner, and Roberts with the inside line for Druids, you would imagine, will be able to make this move stick, but no, Simon Baldwin tried to turn in. He gets the hip and shoulder for his troubles there, but from Steve, and this is all allowed Johnny Greensmith and Carl Garnett to close in, and Greensmith might almost go up the inside of the Rob Boston racing car. No, there wasn't quite a gap, so Roberts hangs on, but that position that he just gained from Simon Baldwin, he loses almost immediately. That was a shame. Drops down to 6th place, 7th for Greensmith and 8th for Garnett. Now Greensmith could really do with gaining some ground here. He said pre-race that he feels that to compete for the championship you really have to be top 5 in every race. Well, he didn't finish in the top 5 in race 1, he finished 7th, and that's where he's running in this one as well, so he'd rather like some points. Of course, we do have the reverse grid to take into account for race number 3 though, so that could put him somewhere near the front of the grid for that one, as happened at Knock Hill, where he was able to go on and win the 3rd race of the weekend. Back down into paddock they go. Roberts a bit wide there. Into the closing stages of this race now, and Herbert still can't quite shake off the advances of Blake Baldwin and Jack Harding. I did notice that Harding almost got himself alongside Blake Baldwin up at Clearways last time round. Into the gravel though has gone Will Stevenson in number 62. That's at Paddock Hill Bend, I think, and that can be retrieved with a live snatch, but we're that late into the race that I wonder whether they might just decide to throw a red flag. We'll wait and see. It's not that it's a particularly serious incident, it's just that there's no point really throwing the safety car, because by the time the safety car's got out and caught everyone up, the time will have run out anyway. So we are right in the dying moments of this race, only a couple of laps left, so we'll see whether they let them run right the way to the end. James Blake Baldwin will be hoping that they do, because he's really starting to build up a challenge on Luke Herbert, but they're into a yellow flag zone now at Paddock Hill Bend, so he can't overtake there. No overtaking when the yellow flags are on display. That's the reason why. Will Stevenson's car even beached in the gravel trap, so we've had a few drivers throwing themselves at the scenery in this one. We've also lost Nick Boone, I believe, into the pit lane, so 4 or 5 cars are not going to make it to the end of this race, but what's going to happen in this 4 or 5 car train at the front of the field? Luke Herbert, so far so good. He's been able to hold off Blake Baldwin so far in this race. Jack Harding doesn't seem quite able to stay with them at the moment, nor does Aidan Hills, so it's a 2-horse race at the front between Herbert and Blake Baldwin. What can James Blake Baldwin do there? He comes out through Clearways once again and onto the pit straight. In the slipstream down towards the start-finish line they will go, and it is Luke Herbert just about hanging on, I think, from Blake Baldwin in second, who's looking to the inside line there, down towards Paddock Hill Bend. On the brakes they go, and we are on to the final lap. So they are going to shorten the race by a lap by the looks of it. So they're going to throw the checkered flag this time around. So that means that Blake Baldwin's got a bit less time to make this move stick than he would have done. Back out of Druids, down towards Graham Hill Bend they go, and he's looking left, looking right. Which way does he go? Goes to the outside into the corner, trying to get that switchback manoeuvre on the exit, but he's got to watch out because Jack Harding is right there with him as well. Oh, any one of these three drivers could still take to the top step of the podium, and maybe even cars behind them if it all goes wrong. Into the final couple of corners, this is a good overtaking opportunity, but Herbert knows that and defends the inside line, and I don't think there's much that they can do about it now. Luke Herbert, already with 3 wins to his name in 2018, is about to add a 4th, and for the 2nd weekend in a row he wins races 1 and 2 of the weekend in the Mazda MX-5 SuperCup. He wins at Brands Hatch once more. 2nd place goes the way of James Blake Baldwin, and Jack Harding rounds out the podium finishes. A great race though, and that time around Luke really wasn't able to pull that much of a gap over the cars behind. There we see confirmation of the result then. Herbert from Blake Baldwin, from Harding and Hills behind. Then it is Simon Baldwin and Steve Roberts, Johnny Greensmith and Carl Garnett, from Sam Tatler and Gary Townsend rounding out the top 10. Then it's Alec Livesley and Jack Sycamore ahead of Bradley Kent, who finished that one in 13th. Then Colin Bysouth and Christine White, Alex Miller, Javier Brook, Tom Parker, Jeff Gurrier and Nick Rutter round out the top 20. We lost Will Stevenson, Nick Boone, Alex King, George Grant, James Kell and Duncan Harris, unfortunately never finished the first lap.
Luke, that wasn't easy, was it?
No, that race highlighted, you know, what pole means in this championship sometimes. You know, we're all so competitive and also quick that pole was really what won that race for me.
Yeah, I was mentioning it to the other guys, getting a good start here at Brands and getting in front. I even spoke to Jonathan Greensmith and he said, yeah, once you've gone, you've gone.
Yeah, that's it. It's, you know, when the yellow flags are out as well, it just makes it even easier. But you know, the car's handling brilliantly. You know, all the sponsors are here today: SSC Recycling, Chichester Watersports, ANS Tools, McEwan Wealth Management, ACC Tyres. So couldn't do it without all of them. So yeah, it's just a great day.
We're going to see a hat-trick on the car.
Thanks very much.
James, one step higher this time. You can't get past Luke around Brands Hatch.
Yeah, very difficult circuit to try and pass. You know, Luke's managed it really, really well. We've got some thinking to do. I've got some ideas. So hopefully the next race will be a little bit better.
Yeah, and you've also got to think of Jack Harding, always behind you.
Yeah, it's always difficult defending and attacking at the same time. You know, we'll see if we can progress in the next one. Blink Motorsport done an amazing job with the car, so I can't thank them enough. They've given me the tools to do the job. We just have to manage the situation.
Jack, it wasn't easy. It was an epic battle throughout, but 3rd place, you've got to be happy.
Yeah, exactly. We had a 2nd yesterday. We know the importance of qualifying. We didn't qualify very well, unfortunately, due to a couple of issues. So damage limitation, really. We finished 2nd yesterday, which was really good. Really happy with that. And today 3rd. You know, good points again. So going on to race 3.
Yeah, you've got to think about how you can pass your competitors around this track. There's nowhere to do it.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult around this track, but hopefully race 3 will be a bit better with the reverse grid, because I'll be in front of them boys anyway.